This episode is brought to you by the RVA Podcast Network. Find more information at rvapodcast.org.
We do not own the rights to anything or any music that's heard during the duration of this podcast. Also, a lot of these shows will have explicit content. So if you are not a fan of any cursing or profanity, you may want to walk away, but that does not mean that every show will consist of such. What's good, y'all? It's season 5 of the Past BT Pod with your host, BT. We have a new season here, and it's time to get this show going. As you all know, we talk about sports. Sports won't be as big of a carrier this year. I think we'll be carrying more towards the stuff, and predominantly on the sports side, you'll be hearing more from the musical aspect, but we will still be talking about technical. We'll be giving you the video game content. I will still be going over the ass of the week. We'll definitely be passing the message. You'll be getting an angel number, and you'll get quite a few gems. So sit back, relax, take your time, don't waste your time. This is the Past BT with your host, Brian. What is up? What is going on? Our first, I guess you could say, official weekly episode of season 5 of The Past is here. BT is back with y'all, ready to drop these gems and drop this information, man. I ain't gonna sit here and make this into some long-winded, exciting, over-the-top show. I will start off by saying there will be no angel number for this episode because this one was kind of a sudden yet urgent recording, but I was able to get the thoughts together for what I needed. Now, we'll give backstory on one of the stories in a moment, but I will talk about the main reason why I did this episode. I was planning to do this episode anyway, but I didn't know how I was going to do it. My timing, a lot of stuff played into it, but we'll just talk about what it is. If you're reading the title, you will see that it's Harden and Samsung. These are going to be the main two stories as the random car sputtering down the road just rolls on by. But anywho, if you are listening to this show, if you know me and you know I talk sports, you know that I was going to talk about this story, especially being a basketball fan. I have been in my sports group actively for almost 8 years, if not longer. And normally, I'm usually in the group to give information to talk about different things, but this one, I really, as news was coming to me, I was literally giving it to the sports group and kind of having like an open forum or open discussion about a lot of it. And we're going to, I don't even want to say deep dive, but we're going to kind of look at this from all angles and really understand what got us to this point. We're not going to start from January the 13th, obviously, because that was the day the trade broke. We're going to go back to, I guess you could say, about October, November, near the NBA draft. And then that'll kind of lead us to where we are now. James Harden made it clear he wanted out of Houston. He wanted to leave Houston. He was willing to put the teams on the table that he was willing to go to leave Houston. Teams came up. Names came up. One of the first names that came up at that time, if you recall, was Brooklyn. Brooklyn was on the table as a team that would consider doing a trade. The other team that came up at that time was Philadelphia, and I believe Miami was one that was on the table as well. Miami's going to be interesting, and I'm going to get to that at the end of this reading. But we go through, the phases. They look at what teams are out there. There were no proper suitors for a trade at that time, quote unquote. We go through the regular season. 9 games into the season, Harden is still adamant about wanting a trade. They played Now, let me before I talk about that. If you listened to episode, I believe 310, no, not even 310, 309. 309, I actually broke the story or talked about the story at the time. It had already happened, but it really became a real thing in addressing Russell Westbrook being traded for John Wall. That was a contract-based trade, but it was also hey, Westbrook isn't working and Wall wants out, so let's make this deal happen. Moving forward, Wall is on the team. You would think Harden was very receptive and open to him coming in, but that obviously was not the case. This then leads to games 1 through 9 being played, and currently Houston being 2-7. This draws about a lot of questions. There's a group that I found on Clubhouse. They do what's called PTR, which is pull to refresh. And they asked the $1 million question. Who's at fault for this trade happening? Or who's at fault for Harden wanting to leave? And a great conversation was had by this. A lot of people said Harden. I think at the time I said Harden. A lot of people in the group said the Rockets, based on accountability, which both perspectives of it were valid. Chris, who's one of our main voices of the group, he was able to drop this gem in pointing out that the NBA was at fault, or the NBA was to be made accountable for this. The NBA allowed this to happen. And to give the timeline and open dialogue about how this worked or where this kind of intertwines, go back to 2011. Chris Paul wanted to leave the Pelicans. At the time, they were the New Orleans Hornets. And so he wanted to leave. Then Commissioner David Stern, oddly enough, was the owner of that team. By him being the owner of that team, he was able to come in and say, "Hey, I'm vetoing this trade." Now, the part we didn't talk about it in the group at that time, but it gave a very open eye perspective. The NBA can and does have the ability, if they want to, not allow trades, but I think this one was a little different. I mean, trades now are a lot different in the fact of, if a player is open to leaving, they're leaving because that's their choice or their option to do so. What made that circumstance different was David Stern. It wasn't really an awareness factor that David Stern was technically, even though he was the commissioner, he was also part owner. He was the owner of the Hornets because they didn't have an owner. I bring that in because then we're in the group and we're all talking about possible landing spots for James Harden. The question wasn't if, it was when he was going to be traded. I did not expect by a long shot to be at work and see a notification come across my phone, because I said, they might get something done by MLK, which was, a couple weeks from now. And oddly enough, they did. They got a trade done. This trade involved 2 teams. Well, it initially started with 3 teams, and then a 4th team was added. So the initial trade that was reported by Woj was Brooklyn's acquiring James Harden in a 3-way deal with Cleveland. Karis LeVert, Dante Exum, Rodions Kurucs, and 4 first-round picks, including the Cavs' 2022 first pick via the Bucks, and 4 Nets picks go to the Rockets. Jarrett Allen and Taurean Prince go to the Cavs. This then also leads to Victor Oladipo being traded, where they expanded the deal and said they sent Karis LeVert to the Pacers for Victor Oladipo. Now, if you heard all of that and you look at it and you say, okay, well, who got who and what does this leave players? This is the full breakdown of the trade. Again, The Brooklyn Nets get James Harden. The Rockets get Oladipo, Dante Exum, Curix. I don't know why I want to call him a Keurig, but Curix. 3 Brooklyn first rounders, 1 Milwaukee first rounder, 4 Brooklyn first round swaps. Pacers then get Karis LeVert, a second rounder, and also the Cavs get Jared Allen and Taurean Prince. This then led to us thinking about the teams and their lineups. And we already see that the Rockets roster will be pretty stacked, at least as of now. You have DeMarcus Cousins and Christian Wood as big men. Forwards, PJ Tucker, Daniel House, Jae'Sean Tate, Bruno Caboclo, Kenyon Martin, and Rodion Curix. And then at the guards, you're looking at John Wall, Oladipo, Eric Gordon, David Nwaba, Sterling Brown, Ben McLemore, Mason Jones, Broderick Thomas, Chris Clemens, and Dante Exum. The latest story is Dante Exum is out indefinitely, so there's no certain. And it's said indefinitely, like he kind of was traded as part of, for the sake of roster space as well as the cap. That was what that trade was for. Exum likely won't be staying there. I think a story even broke recently that I believe Thon Maker is leaving Cleveland. Thon Maker and another player are leaving Cleveland. I think to open spots for those two new names to come in. I don't have the Cavs' new roster, including Allen and Prince. But what makes that trade interesting for them that I'm looking at is now here you have Andre Drummond and Jared Allen vying for position because, Allen's been in the league probably about 3 or 4 years. And you also have Andre Drummond, who is possibly going to leave the team at some point because he's happy in Cleveland, but he's not happy because without saying he wants to win. There's nothing wrong with wanting contracts. Wanting money and finishing out or whatever, but it's a bigger picture involved. We then look at Golden State's roster, where you have Kyrie, Harden, Joe Harris, Landry Shamet, Bruce Brown, Tyler Johnson, Chris Chiozza, Spencer Dinwiddie. And then at forward, you have Kevin Durant, Timothy Luwawu Cabarrot, Jeff Green, Reggie Perry, Nicholas Claxton. And then at center, you only have DeAndre Jordan. Jordan's a great player. Still kind of early to look at where this could go or what this could lead to. I won't, and like I said, we also had the Pacers involved with this as well. Seeing who wins or who comes out of this is still kind of early, with Karis LeVert joining the Pacers, but that also makes them a more young core, which is what it's all about at the end of the day. I know this, if nothing else, Harden had better play like he wants to win. I even shared a picture or a reference of showing Harden, pre-workout back before he was getting prepared for the bubble, and Harden when he first got back to the league at the beginning of the season. So I looked at those things as well as far as how this will play out for him. And also a story came up that multiple teams have expressed interest in trading for PJ Tucker, which that also brings about a lot of conversation. I've even gone as far as looking at just a simple, I want to see if I can get this article before I forget, because this then came up on my page of the Rockets are already seeking to trade Oladipo. They're saying Victor Oladipo already seeking trade away from Rockets. And just kind of go over this article briefly, it looks like the whirlwind of player movement after that shocking 4-team deal involving James Harden may not be done yet for Victor Oladipo at least. The newly acquired Houston Rockets guard, who is the centerpiece of the blockbuster that sent Harden to the Brooklyn Nets, is reportedly not keen on staying in H-Town this season. According to a report from Kevin O'Connor from The Ringer, the two-time All-Star prefers to be traded elsewhere. Victor Oladipo, 28, reportedly still wishes to be traded back to the Eastern Conference to be with the team of his choice, the Miami Heat. If Oladipo really wants nothing to do with Clutch City, this will be a cruel twist for Rockets fans who are already visualizing his fit with the team's new core of John Wall, Christian Wood, and DeMarcus Cousins. While the Rockets are not obligated to give in to his supposed demands, they might have to do so soon. He will become a restricted free agent after the season, giving him full control of the decision where to sign next. So if they let him go, it's not going to be a huge hurt or harm. But he also doesn't want to be there either. But he was key to the trade happening, because if he didn't trade or didn't leave, then that would have left things kind of up in the air as to what would happen with Harden even being able to leave. Because Harden also, after the night, and I want to add this in too, after the 9th game, they did a post-game interview. And he went, he did one of the few times he talked about it in saying that he was not happy there. He didn't say those exact words, but he more so said it as, he just didn't like the face of where the organization was going and what he was trying to do. So that's what led to him wanting to leave. And it even got a little hostile, because you could even see it with other players who were on the team. John Wall's looking at it as, I'm trying to get us a chance. I just got here. We got to get the team time to gel. But he had other plans, so it turned out being what it was. Even DeMarcus Cousins chimed in on it. We'll like I said, winners or losers, you can say who you feel. I just know for a fact that we have a very weighted season upon us, or I would say the next 10 to 15 games are going to be ones to really look at. If we get a chance to see it, I would like to see Brooklyn play. I think Brooklyn plays LA before the first half of the season, which I think is in late February. And from there, you'll have, because as you all are or aren't aware, there will be no NBA All-Star game this year. What I'm intrigued to see, and I've probably talked about this on the show already, there's a good chance they're likely going to do the All-Star game like they did they're planning to do the Pro Bowl for the NFL. Well, I think they're going to virtually send it to a 2K format. Just a matter of who's going to be what team and all those things. So we'll keep an eye out for that. I was supposed to watch the Samsung Unpacked. I thought it was coming on at 2 p.m. It turned out I was not paying attention and realizing that it actually came on at 10 a.m. And so I was kind of stuck in missing it, because I was intending to do a live stream of the event. Or I was gonna live watch the event and just give thoughts as the event was being played. Of course, I missed it, which then led to me mainly doing what most people do, and which has been known to be the more convenient option of watching or participating in catching an event. And that is to watch the event in a under 12-minute breakdown, deep dive of what we saw, what we gathered from the event. So I did watch The Verge's version of it, and theirs was broken down in about 12 minutes. We basically have 3 phones that are coming out. The Galaxy S21, the Galaxy S21 Plus, and the Galaxy S21 Ultra. The Ultra looks like a badass because it has, I initially said 4 lenses, but it looks like it has 5. They are implementing what's called Wacom integration, which for those of you who do not know, anyone who does any graphic design and uses tablets, Wacom is one of the top tablet designers or companies out there. I was intrigued because when I saw the boxing at the end, or the unboxing, they showed an image of the USB-C, but they didn't show a power brick. So I'm wondering if they're beginning to go the avenue or direction that Apple is going. Something to look at. I also did look at a lot of the specs for the phone. The phone looks really nice. I like the sleek design. Looks very, and I know people are going to be like, oh, you're using all the keywords, but it's a very sleek design for real. as far as how it's curved, and it has the ability to still not feel like the worst thing with iPhone users, and any iPhone user can attest to this. If your phone is not in the case, you sit it on the table, it's going to have a slight raise or leveler where it just looks like it's not sitting flat on a table. This looks like it's not as big of an issue because the area that it's in is just in the upper, it'll be the upper right hand corner, and you notice it by far. Like, it's not as noticeable as it would be with other phones. They also introduced, now they brought up the phones last. The S21 is a 6.2 display, and the S21 Plus is a 6.7. Unless they mentioned the Ultra and I just wasn't paying attention, it was definitely a larger screen. I'm gonna check if it shows that information in this one. Let's see. It may not have it on this one, but a refresher. Okay, yeah, they don't have it listed. So yeah, it's not a bad design or a bad look that I've seen from it. They are promoting the S Pen and the S Pen Pro. The S Pen, I believe, is going to be a pen that normally will come with your phone, and the S Pen Pro is one that you can get that's more advanced and has a wider capability. The Galaxy Buds Pro look pretty amazing. I'm a fan of any headset that has the ability to do noise cancellation. I don't know if I've mentioned it on the show or not, but I made a switch that I don't regret. Like, I love my AirPods. I'm an AirPod guy, but I did get the AirPods Pro. AirPods Pro are pretty underrated by far. And I say they're underrated just in the sense that you can wear them and get way more battery out of them than expected compared to having the original AirPods. They've improved the ambient sound, which, if you are unaware with ambient sound, is very key, because when people get close to you and talk, people who are far away from you, you're not going to hear them at all. I know with using these headphones, when I have it on noise canceling, I don't hear nothing. If I have it on what I call transparent mode is almost equivalent to ambient sound. And that kind of gives you that flexibility. If you talk to me, if you're just right near me, I can hear what you're saying. But if you're ways away, unless you yell, that's the only way that I'm not gonna really hear what you're saying. They did add what's called a voice pickup, a VPU, a voice pickup unit, which is if it's aware that voices are like someone's talking to you, then you will get it will change according to that, so that conversation can be had if there's a form of dialogue occurring. They're doing what's called Smart Things Find, as I always tell people, and it's not even a comparison. This is where integration of technology becomes real, because it has the similarity and the features of what most Apple users know as Find My, which I still will say, any device that has capability or a chance of doing either Find My or doing still doing Smart Things Find, you can't beat what you get from that specific feature or from that actual capability. So I definitely can say I don't sleep or I don't rest on the feature or the talent, what that feature entails. They also brought up something that I saw coming, which means Apple is likely going to promote or show theirs at their next keynote, which is the Galaxy Smart Tag. The Smart Tag, if you have been under a rock for the last few years, a lot of companies are promoting, or a lot of businesses are promoting, the Tiles or different third-party devices that you mainly can keep with things that you naturally have, such as your keys, your wallet, You could even put it on your phone, but it's pointless to have on the phone because they kind of integrate through the phone and the device. And here's what I mean. I probably talked about this on the show, but I'm going to rewind. And from what I'm seeing with the Smart Tag and the Smart Tag Plus, it looks like it's in a similar feat. With Tile, it's mainly the factor of, let's say you have a Tile hooked up to your keys. If you can't find your keys, you can open the app on the phone and utilize the Tile feature, and it would have the Tile go off to say, oh, here's where your device is. Vice versa, if you have your keys and can't find your phone, you just press the button on the Tile and it will find your phone for you. So they're integrating that and making that become a thing with Samsung, and that'll mainly put Samsung in its ecosystem of having its own device, which then makes me believe personally that Apple is looking to do the same thing over the next couple of weeks. I say the next couple of weeks, but I'll say by the time we get our next actual Apple keynote, I have a hunch they're going to be talking about the features involved with this the Apple tags that they were supposed to be coming out with a while back. So those are the two stories that I have that I thought of, that I was considering, because I know I was all over the place, back and forth a little bit with what I wanted to talk about. But I do want to say that I hope everyone is doing well. I will be getting more research on some stories between now and Tuesday, because Tuesday I look to have a pretty packed show, and we'll see what's in store. Now, the only thing that I didn't talk, and I guess I'll add this in as a sports. I'll add this as a sports story. I'll give a passing message and we'll wrap up. Alabama beat the brakes off of Ohio State. And when I say beat the brakes, it was like 52-24. I won't even say it was a tale of two halves. Like at first, for a moment, it looked like Ohio State was able to keep up scoring wise. Alabama has not played any games in the time period of us getting this thing going. So in hindsight and overall, Alabama was the better team. Alabama was able to win a national championship. If you notice, though, it didn't get as much. It got attention, but it didn't get attention. And also, from a brief football or NFL perspective, the Steelers are who we thought they were, and they let the Browns off the hook. The Browns gave them the best version of the Browns that they could, and they paid for it. So we have all our matchups set up for next week. So by Tuesday, I will give the playoff deep dive. I'll probably do my NBA check-in, because I'm not going to look to do that every week, but at least every other week. Kind of give a check back of like seeing what we've seen or what we're seeing coming from the mecca of the league, and going from there. My message today is, and this is gonna kind of lead from a quote, but it's also going to reel it in and bring it all home. A friend of mine gave me and shout out to Lonnie. I've said this story multiple times. If you go back and listen to episode 1, he was one of the first guests I had on the show, oddly enough. But we did a show together, and he sent me a motivational quote that basically said, "Let go or be dragged." And to some people that doesn't sound like a lot, or it doesn't have a whole lot of meaning behind it. But the reality is, if you let things go, it won't stunt your growth. And if you don't let it go, you're gonna be dragged, or it's gonna carry you. The weight of it's gonna carry with you along the way. Holding on to things or carrying stuff that's not worth carrying when the other person isn't carrying it is not beneficial, because you're dragging something that has no time or space to be dragged. So I'm giving you this as a gem, and I'm giving you this as a pass the message. If it's not worth holding on to, let it go and move forward. Because by holding on to it, you're shortening your distance of travel, you're stunning your growth, you're missing your potential, and you're leaving yourself behind as time progresses. Until next time, this is The Pass signing out, and I'm your host, BT. Take it easy. You have made it to the end of yet another episode of the Pass BT Pod. I hope you gained something or walked away with some worthwhile information, whether it was related to any of the information provided about sports, about music, about technology, or possibly my personal fave, the Pass the Message. We want you to come in with an open mind and an open heart and walk away with something that's going to benefit you and carry you through your day, through your week, through your month, through your life. And that's the main objective here on The Pass. So I hope you were able to receive that. If you are looking to get find a good place to host your podcast, you can check out buzzsprout.com. And if you're also looking to invest in a microphone, a lot of people have their angst or their differences towards it. But I'm currently using the Blue Yeti X, and I've been using it for a little over a year. And it's still to this day one of my best investments I've made. And if I always give this as my closing tip. If you are a creative and you have the space to create, do not do your least to give your best effort towards what you're good at doing. Until next time, y'all take it easy.